Does your OCD use numbers as a weapon against you? We're going to talk all about it. Stay tuned. That's what's up next. Hi, my name is Natasha Daniels. I'm a therapist and I make videos for people with anxiety or OCD. And today I want to talk to you about numbers. OCD loves numbers. Not for everybody, but for a lot of people who have OCD, sometimes one of my first questions when I'm doing an assessment is, do you have a favorite number? Do you have a number that you hate? And a lot of times the answer is yes and yes. And that's not a coincidence. OCD uses numbers often in compulsions. You might have a favorite number. I have to do everything in 2s. I have to do everything in 4s. You might have a number that you despise. I can't ever see 6. I can't ever see 13. Or you might have more of a general love for numbers. It always has to be even, or it always has to be odd. It can't be odd or it can't be even. It doesn't matter how it shows up. It's just the fact that you're not alone. Numbers, OCD, they go together a lot. So what are you supposed to do about that? And how does it make you use numbers to grow itself? OCD might say you need to do things a certain number of times. It might tell you that you have to leave things on certain numbers. It might tell you that you have to do compulsions in pairs of 3s or 6s or 8s. It is literally different for every single person. But the bottom line is part of its to-do list, part of its demand list involves doing it in a special number or in a special way, or avoiding a special number. So like everything else I teach you, the answer is simple, but to do it can be tricky, right? So learning how to handle your OCD thoughts and what you're supposed to do when you have a compulsion isn't really crazy rocket science. It's kind of obvious, right? We want to do the opposite of what OCD wants, or we want to ignore OCD. But it's the act of doing that becomes really difficult. And it's the same thing with numbers. You first have to realize that it's not your favorite number, or it's not your despised number. It's just a number. It holds no value, good or bad. That's OCD placing value on a number. It's not your special lucky number or your special bad number. It's OCD. And when it's OCD and not just one of your special numbers, we don't want to make OCD happy. We don't want to be like, okay, little OCD, I know you love the number 2, so I will do this 2 times for you. Oh, you want more? You only like even numbers? Okay, I'll do it 2 and then 4 times, then 6 times. The scary part is when you start doing compulsions by numbers, especially if you have to do things in pairs by that number. I have to do this compulsion, but I have to do it 4 times to make sure that it's the magic number 4. It will grow. And so sometimes it'll start off at 4, but then OCD might say, thanks for doing that. I really appreciate it. Thanks for growing me. Let's round it up and let's double it to 8. Oh, you like that? Let's round that up and let's do it 12 times. Let's do it by denominators of 4. It will make up more and more rules because that's what OCD does. The more you engage OCD, the more you say, okay, OCD, I'll just give you what you want. Just leave me alone, okay? And I do it, the more OCD is going to demand more. There are people who have to do compulsions hundreds of times because they have to do it in the sequence of numbers that OCD is telling them. So even if you're saying, Natasha, it's not that big a deal, so I have to do things 3 times, it's fast. I can do it 3 times. What are you going to do when it's 6 or 9 or 12 or 15 or double that to 30? Because that does happen, and that happens more often than not. So the easy way to beat this, but the hard way to do it, is by doing the opposite of what OCD wants, right? That's what we do for all these things. So if OCD loves 2, then maybe I'm going to do it 1 or 3 times. I'm going to change it up still because OCD is like a chess player, like a master chess player. So if you switch numbers and you say, okay, you like 2, so I'm going to always do it 3, then OCD will be like, 3's okay, but it has to be done in 3s. We're going to do it in 3s. So even when you're trying to beat OCD, you're going to have to get kind of creative and shifty, and you're going to do it different numbers at different times. So if my OCD loves even numbers, then I'm going to do things in an odd way some of the time even. Or if it always likes 6, then maybe one time I'm going to do it 7 times. Maybe one time I'm going to do it 1 time. Ultimately, the goal is to not do it multiple times at all, but to bring it down and only have to do the compulsion once and then eventually 0 times. That's the main goal. But sometimes it's not about doing a compulsion. Sometimes it's about having that number on the radio dial land exactly that way, or picking a certain number for certain things in your life. Anything can be a compulsion. So then you might put on a number that you really don't like. Oh, I hate 6. No, you don't hate it. Your OCD hates it. Well, then I'm going to put the radio volume on 6 on purpose. Maybe I'm going to write 6, 6, 6, 6. Maybe I'm going to put sticky notes with the numbers that are bad all around my room. So sometimes people do these things with numbers because something bad will happen. And so as long as they stick with the good numbers, they're safe. Other times it just doesn't feel right. And so what's driving that behavior can be different for each one of you. But the way to fix it is the same. And it's the same with every single thing that we talk about when it comes to OCD. It's punching OCD back in its face, I know it sounds violent, by being proactive and offensive, not defensive, and saying, I'm going to do it this many times because I know that just really bugs you. Or I'm only going to do it once, even if you tell me I can't do it, that's going to be an odd number. I'm going to do it anyway because I'm going to bug you. And if that's too much, just take it one small step at a time. Like everything else I teach you, it's one small bite, and over time, you have eaten the entire thing, right? One small step, and before you know it, you're like, whoa, I've made some huge progress. Because small steps lead to big change. They just take a little bit of time. So what will you be doing with your numbers? Do you know your favorite numbers? Do you know the numbers that you hate? Write them down. And then come up with a plan. What's the first little thing that you can do that will make OCD super uncomfortable? Could you write them on sticky notes? Could you do a different number that OCD doesn't like? Try it, experiment, and see how it goes. Well, I hope that you find the sparkle in everything you do, and I'll talk to you again next Thursday. Take care.